Welcome back everyone, my name is Danny Burke. You guys know that, but you might not know who this is standing right next to me. This is Eamon, the brand new host of our brand new channel, Top 10 Hindi. What is all that about?
Well, in case you didn't know or hear before, my name is Eamon and I'm the new host on the Hindi channel here at Top 10. So that's anything and all the content you know and love, but for our South Asian viewers. So if you're into that, if you want to see or you want to see more of my face, then come check us out.
She is going to watch it at some point, but if you guys want to see that, it should be hovering somewhere up here. It should be a little card, so click on that, but make sure you do it after the video because this is going to be a good one.
Okay, and now we're going to get into the top 10 scariest criminals from Texas. Starting off at number 10, now we have Joe Ball. This American serial killer is sometimes known as the Alligator Man, and it's going to become obvious why very soon. After fighting in Europe during World War I, he opened a saloon called the Sociable Inn in Elmendorf, Texas. At first everything seemed normal, people coming in for some bevies and some banter, and it was all a great time. However, it can't always be just bevies and banter. Local heads turned when he built a pond and bought 5 alligators to live in it. He would charge visitors if they wanted to see them, especially during feeding time. The meals were mostly live cats and dogs, so poor puppies. Then women in the area were reported missing. Some of them were barmaids at the inn, then former girlfriends of Joe Ball, and then finally his wife. Joe Ball had been killing them, butchering their remains, and then feeding them to his alligators. Now, I'm not sure how people settled relationship quarrels back then, but I feel like there are a lot better ways than just feeding the missus to the pet alligators, but that's just me though. Starting in 1936, he did this for 2 years. He was taken in for police questioning but didn't crack. He believed he was safe because there was no way for police to even find the bodies. However, he did have an accomplice who did talk. The man told the police how Ball had forced him to move female body parts at gunpoint. The police showed up at the inn and then asked to inspect the meat barrel. Joe Ball hit the no sale button on the cash register. He then reached inside and grabbed his pistols from the drawer and shot himself in the heart, and thus ends the story of the Alligator Man.
Next up at number 9 now, we have ANDREA Yates. In 2001, she confessed to drowning her own 5 children in their bathtub. She'd been suffering with postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. She was in and out of psychiatric clinics to help treat her and was given cocktails of medications to help curb her suicidal tendencies. A psychiatrist warned ANDREA and her husband Rusty not to have any more children, as it would only worsen her condition. Soon after her release though, she conceived their 5th child. By the following year, she had degenerated into a near catatonic state. She began mutilating herself and reading Bible verses feverishly. On June 20th, 2001, her husband left for work against their doctor's instructions to supervise ANDREA around the clock. She then filled the bathtub with water, and one by one she began to drown her young children. The final child tried to run when he saw his sister floating in the bathtub, but he too was caught and killed.
Next up at number 8, we have the Candy Man. No, it's not as sweet as it sounds. That's the gruesome nickname given to Dean Core, a pedophile killer responsible for the murder of at least 28 people in Texas. Some even believe that number could be as high as 47. 28, 47, I mean that's a bloody big range. He would often take his victims' car and house keys as a trophy. His sole targets were males between the ages of 13 and 20, and he would lure them in with the help of 2 teenage accomplices. Victims would then be tortured, beaten and raped, sometimes for days, before Core eventually strangled or shot them. Core got his nickname the Candy Man due to his family owning a candy making business, which he was fired from for making sexual advances on employees. Objection, why did his parents do nothing when they saw this go on the first time round? I mean, they could have saved the world from a whole lot of grief. In a cruel twist to the murders, Core would often make the teenagers write letters to their parents explaining their absence, leaving police to assume that they had just simply run away.
Moving on to number 7 now, we have Carl Eugene Watts. When Watts was 12 years old, he began to fantasize about torturing and killing girls and young women. During adolescence, he began to stalk girls, and it's thought he killed his first victim before the age of 15. In 1969, he was arrested for sexually assaulting 26-year-old Joan Gave. He was sentenced to a mental hospital in Detroit. In 1974, he killed his first official victim, torturing and brutally murdering 20-year-old Gloria Steele. From there on, he would go on to kill a further 22 confirmed people, mostly women, and would claim that he also killed up to 40 or perhaps even 80 people during this crazy killing spree. Kelly. He was sentenced to life in prison where he died in 2007 at the age of 53. Next up at number 6 now we have George HENNARD, also known as the Lubis Massacre. This mass shooting took place on October 16, 1991 in Lubis Cafeteria in KELLEY, Texas. On that day, HENNARD drove a pickup truck through the front window of the cafe and he screamed about local women being vipers and said this is what they've done to him and his family, and that this day was payback day. He then opened fire on everyone inside the building and continued to hunt people down as they fled. He killed 23 people. 10 of them with single shots to the head, and wounded another 37. After a tense standoff with police, he committed suicide with a shot to the head. The event now stands as the 4th deadliest non-school mass shooting in US history. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the eyeball killer. In the 1990s, Texas was terrorized by a serial killer with a grisly signature move, eye removal. Their first victim was Mary Pratt, killed on December 13, 1990. When the body was autopsied, the coroner found that her eyes had been carefully removed from their sockets. This grisly detail was actually kept hidden from the media, and the case soon went cold. On February 10, 1991, Susan Peterson was found dead. Her eyes had also been removed. Police increased patrols in the area of Dallas where the murders were taking place, but still the eyeball killer claimed another victim, Shirley Williams, found on March 18th. Her eyes were also missing, but she also had facial bruises and a broken nose, consistent with being punched in the face. A woman tipped off the police about a man called Charles Albright. She said he was known to have an obsession with knives and eyes. Strange combination. Police found that he had a history of assaulting prostitutes. They acquired a search warrant for his home and found a number of suspicious items that possibly linked him to the murders. He was charged with the eyeball killer murders and a further unresolved murder of Rhonda Bowie. The prosecution's case fell apart though, and he was sentenced to life for only one of the murders. Although heavily suspected to be the actual eyeball killer, the murders remain officially unsolved.
Next up at number 4 we have David KORESH. He was the leader of a Christian religious group in Elk, Texas called the Branch Davidians. The group had been known to officials for over a decade and they did have run-ins with the law before, but everything came to a head in 1993. On February 28th, America's Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms attempted to execute a search warrant on the Branch Davidians compound. They were investigating sexual abuse charges and illegal weapons violations. Now I'm no expert, but I'm 100% sure that neither of those fall under the category of divine. The group responded to this with guns. A fierce gun battle erupted, resulting in the deaths of 4 government agents and 6 Branch Davidians. The FBI then took over and sieged the building for 51 days. During the final assault by the FBI, a fire broke out and spread quickly through the compound. 9 made it out alive, but a further 76 were killed, including their leader David KORESH, and good riddance to him.
Alright then, moving on to number 3 now, we have Devin Patrick Kelly. On November 5th, 2017, Kelly opened fire in a small church in the rural community of Sutherland Springs, Texas. 26 people were killed, including an unborn baby. It became the deadliest mass shooting in the history of Texas. 20 others were injured. Kelly was later found dead in his car from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head after an intense police chase. Investigators determined that Kelly was in a domestic dispute with his mother-in-law and would often send her threatening texts. Now she often attended that church, and it seems that Kelly went there to kill her. However, she was not there that day when he unloaded his weapons. One official said at the time, there are many ways that he could have taken care of the mother-in-law without coming with 15 loaded magazines and an assault rifle to a church. I think he came here with a purpose and a mission.
At number 2 now we have the TEXARKANA Moonlight murders. I'm including this in our video about Texas, but this story is famous across America. It even inspired 2 movies. In 1946, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry were parked in their car in a secluded area of a park. They were attacked by a stranger wearing a white mask with holes cut out around the eyes and mouth. Hollis was beaten and Larry was molested. They survived, but the next victims unfortunately did not. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore parked their car in a similar spot and were brutally shot in the back of the head, execution style. The same happened to another couple and then another. One of the final victims was Katie Sharks. She narrowly escaped but wasn't able to see the killer because of the blood pouring from her face into her eyes. I have no words. The killer never attacked again, and their identity remains a mystery to this day.
And finally, number 1 now, we have Sean Allen Berry, Lawrence Russell Brewer, and John William King. These were the 3 men who committed one of the most horrific murders that I've ever heard of. On June 7th, 1998, these 3 white supremacists kidnapped James Byrd Jr. in the town of Jasper, Texas. They dragged him at the back of a pickup truck along an asphalt road for 3 miles. James remained conscious throughout most of the ordeal and was killed halfway through the dragging when his right arm and head were severed from his torso. His body was dumped outside of a nearby church. The killers made little to no attempt to hide the killing, and police quickly tracked them down and they were sentenced for the murders. The ringleader, Brewer, was sentenced to death and executed via lethal injection on September 21st, 2011. King remains on death row while appeals are pending. Berry was sentenced to life in prison. The killing actually led to a whole new law being passed by President Obama to protect individuals on the basis of race, sexual orientation, and gender. Alright guys, for any of you that are still watching the video, I think it's time we're going to wrap this up. Don't forget to catch Eamon over on Top 10 Hindi, where she'll be presenting the brand new channel. She's also going to be helping out on here. You can probably find it floating around here somewhere. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks very much for your help, Eamon.
No worries, anytime.
And we'll see you all very soon.